Well, we're still talking about disaster, but of course away from Sierra Leone to Makudi here in Nigeria, where the flood victims are asking for help as they try to pick up the pieces of their lives.
Deeply submerged in flood.
And joining us to speak further on this is an environmentalist and a director, children and the environment, Shola Alamutu, who's here in the studio with us. Many thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we've seen what has happened in Makudi.
Yes.
Did we see this coming?
Apparently there were warnings. Unfortunately, the government didn't do anything about it, as far as I know. This happened in 2012. There were warnings, and the same thing happened. It's a pity that we have a meteorological society or centers, and they give us warning about floods, and we just wait for it to happen before we respond, which is really too late.
Now, talking about response now,
yes.
How would you rate the level of response we've seen so far? I mean, there have been calls from left, right, and center, and even the social media is buzzing with, you know, help Makudi, help the victims in Benue. But how would you rate the level of response we've seen so far?
From the government, not very high. I didn't hear much of a response from the government until a few days after it became a disaster. It should have been right from the beginning. I mean, they have a state emergency agency. So that should have been right there to basically perhaps evacuate people, you know, warn people. Perhaps they didn't hear, you know, and all of that. But that was late. I'm told the National Emergency Agency have coming now and they're working with them. But for me, it's late. But the response that I have seen that I feel is very commendable is that of individuals. Individuals and non-governmental organizations have been fantastic. They are providing relief materials because people have been displaced from their homes, from their offices. A lot of them took absolutely nothing with them, apart from perhaps whatever they had on. No clothing, no toothbrush, no toothpaste, can't take care of themselves. They have children who are helpless, and you know, so they need relief materials such as clothing. They need to take a bath, you know, just basic amenities first before they begin to think, what else do we do? And then government, for example, needs to have camps. I mean, we need to be able to say, this is what you do when you have an emergency and you go to this camp. I don't know where the camps are. I don't know who knows where the camps are. So a lot of private organizations are setting up their own camps. I know that from the last disaster, similar one in 2012, there were horrible stories. Apparently in the camps, there were incidences of rape. Apparently those who were in charge were taking part of the relief materials home or wherever they were going with them or selling them. I mean, that's terrible. So it's actually not even encouraging for anybody to go through those channels to get to the victims, and that's really sad.
Now let's look at how the disaster even came to be in the first place.
Yes.
Many have attributed it to, you know, it being man-made. We have people building houses on low-lying areas.
Yes.
What do you have to say about this?
Floodplains and all. That is true, but were those buildings that were erected, were they approved by someone? Now, if you see those buildings, they're structures that have been there for a little while. You can see that they're solid, which means that they didn't just spring up yesterday. So they've been there for a few years. Like I said, it happened in 2012. So between then and now, the government must have seen, you know, those buildings. And what did they do? Does it mean that they didn't know that they are not supposed to be there? What do they do about it? Somebody's staying where it is, they're likely to get hurt, and you don't do anything. And then there's disaster, and you say, oh, I told them. What did you do after telling them? Did you try to take them away? Did you provide where else they should go? Because there must be a reason why they're there. It's land that a lot of them, their lands that their families own. So they've had it forever. Okay, so where else would they go? And that's what a lot of people feel. We don't know where else to go. So if you're not providing an alternative, they really just do not know. So they build there, and then you let it happen. And then when there's a disaster, all you do is that we told them. I'm also told that there's an ecological fund that was actually allocated, but it never got to anybody that actually needs it.
Now, I'm sure that there's a lot to be said about this, but of course we have our eyes on this developing story, and we'll invite you again to talk more. But thank you so much for coming on the program, Shola
Thank you for having me
Executive
here.
Director of Children and the Environment.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Well, still to come on Network Africa, a dance school is on the verge of closing down. And of course, we'll talk about the Eagles match against the indomitable Lions of Cameroon today. Please stay with us.